So welcome to the Liberating Arts. It's lovely, we continue, and today I'm going to take you on a little tour. A tour into England, into the world of Antony Gormley, and that cannot be without some sense of alchemy and transmutation. So that's why that is also one of the points that we are, say, exposed to. Alchemy of spiritual awakening. Why am I using that? You will see, of course. So Antony Gormley is one who transcends. For instance, he makes a sculpture. He casts a sculpture of his own body. Cast it in some kind of iron or lead or who knows what. So, and places that in a space, in a worldly space, seeing that, in fact, where he places it, it becomes a totally different thing. Like he sees it as an impersonal shape. It has nothing to do with him truly, but he places it in a certain landscape and see how it works there. See if he can, if, say, the heaviness or the density of the sculpture can, say, be transcended by the place where it stands. And he does that in a very lovely way. So I love to use him as an example, just because he has made an incredible lot of work, and not that that's good or anything, but it's like there are lots of examples of his work placed in public spaces. So that makes it interesting to see how it interacts with a landscape. And he's one who made many, say, sculptures in sea. So the sea is doing something with it, with having a flood, or like the up and down of the tides influences how the whole sculpture is looking. But that does something with the landscape, you will see. So let's go on a little tour. Let's get outside and take a look at the sculptures of Antony Gormley. I really love that. It's so great to take a look at it. You see how this works in landscape, and that is an effect. Sure, it is a sculpture. It's just a piece of iron in the sea. Something is happening to it. It's like, but as a way to express something, it is a beautiful language that he uses to see. You see all the feelings that are coming up by watching this. It's like, oh wow, that's such an incredible space, or whatever your response is. But I love this because it places the human body in a whole different perspective, or the object that looks like a human body. Like it is very interactive in that sense. Like this body, so to speak, shouldn't be there in the sea. It is dangerous, or who knows what. Like it has immediately that you have responses to it. And this is just based on how you look, and in fact are immediately invited to go beyond it, because it's a sculpture. It's not a human body, it's a sculpture that looks like a human body. So I think this tension is really what makes this very expressive, and I love it for that. It's like so beautiful to use materials like that in order to come to transcend it. So yeah, lovely example. Now Right. So it's like, well, you have to see this. There's more, of course, there's more. It's like the one thing I really like about his work too is the clay puppets that he made with many of his assistants, like in China, in Brazil, and all kinds of places. He made 10,000s of clay puppets that would all just be spread out, standing up straight, somewhere in some kind of space. So that was also an important start. I'm not going to go into that right now, but that's one of his big works in the 90s for sure. So that's really lovely. Now you hear what he's saying at the end of this video that we watched. It's like he started to come into some kind of meditative form in which he closes his eyes and sees like there's a dark space I enter into, but it's not necessarily frightening. It just opens up to become a greater and greater space. Like it changes its quality. It is expanding. And this is just one of the things. Like he certainly had a connection with, and has a connection with meditation, with silence, with really taking a look at what is occurring, and also not being afraid to step into the 3D expression of those ideas, like the self-expression of his discoveries. That's what I really love about it. Now, I made a reference to alchemy and transmutation, and that inspired me. So it might not necessarily be directly connected to Antony Gormley, but it was certainly called up by his work. And meeting another healer this week that has a background in the alchemy and transmutation, I started to look for some information regarding that and see how well it compares to the process that you find yourself in, even referring to the characteristics of the teachers of God. You will start to recognize certain parts of it too. Now this, what I'm going to share with you, is a bit of a stretch, and a mind stretch, because the terminology is different, but it really doesn't matter. So it's like just say, allow yourself to be open-minded to hear this and see how much recognition there is of what you already know, or what you recognize to be true. So that's what I'm going to share with you now, and that's 7 stages of spiritual alchemy. So the comparison between alchemy as we know it from history, where like base metals are turned into gold, for instance, or all kinds of reactions, occult chemistry would take place. We completely translate this to a transformational process. In fact, you recognizing yourself as a human being and seeing that going through a process of rebirth, in fact recognizing the true nature of your being the golden light of eternity, is the alchemy of spirituality. You could say the alchemy of transformation. So that is very recognizable. So in that sense, it fits in with how we look at things, and that's why I wanted to share it. Okay, here we begin. The 7 stages of spiritual alchemy, a step-by-step guide. Spiritual alchemy is a practice that utilizes the ancient occult practice of alchemy as a metaphor to facilitate inner transformation and spiritual awakening. Spiritual alchemy is an ancient practice aimed at achieving spiritual rather than material transformation. On the other hand, the occult science of physical alchemy deals with chemistry, and specifically the transmutation of base metals such as lead into gold. Alchemy was practiced by individuals seeking to attain material wealth and those who sought a universal elixir for immortality, the Philosopher's Stone. Spiritual alchemy then uses the ancient wisdom of alchemy as a metaphor for spiritual enlightenment through a 7-step process that aligns with the 7 steps of physical transformation described in alchemical treatises. What are these essential steps? Stage 1. Calcination. Calcination, the first stage of spiritual alchemy, is also known as the black stage. The color black represents chaos, that which is hidden and buried, and the material of the unconscious. It also refers to the materia prima, an idea in occult science that all matter in the universe emerged from an original primitive base. Calcination refers to the burning of the materia prima until it transformed into ashes. In the spiritual sense, it refers to breaking free from our worldly attachments, the desire for status and wealth, and the need to solidify our identity. It's not to say these things are wrong, but according to the process, the development of a higher level of consciousness and the refinement of the spirit are hindered by these attachments. Calcination also refers to the burning off of all of the superfluous elements of ourselves that no longer serve us. We are purified by fire. The hardened and dead parts of ourselves have burned away. All that has calcified within us is removed in a similar manner to how hardened plaque builds up on teeth and can be removed. Our preconceived notion about our identity and our limiting core beliefs are put to the test in the calcination stage. Our ideologies and neuroses begin to lessen their grip on the persona, enabling the spiritual alchemist to stop self-sabotaging behavior and take the first steps towards awakening. The calcination stage has been likened to the dark night of the soul. This 16th century poem describes the journey of the soul to unification with God, whereby our former worldview is dismantled and we undergo an existential crisis. The beginnings of spiritual development are typically arduous, as our former ties of identification are no longer valid and we become face to face with the void. Stage 2. Dissolution. The second stage of spiritual practice involves dissolving the ashes in the water. Water could be interpreted as a symbol for the unconscious, which contains the hidden parts of ourselves that we have been afraid of and, up until now, have not been explored. Dissolution can be understood as the stage in which we free ourselves from our inauthentic and acquired sense of identity. In medieval alchemy, dissolution refers to the dissolving of solid materials such as salt dissolved in water that can be understood in Jungian terms as the dissolution of the ego. Since the dissolution stage takes water as its symbol, it is also associated with intense emotions, as water often symbolizes the reservoir of emotions within. The dissolution stage involves the outlet of repressed emotion from traumatic events that we push down into our psyche. It can be a very cathartic step as we free ourselves of past painful experiences and self-doubt to start the process of emotional healing. Stage 3. Separation. In the separation stage, the pure essence is extracted from the rest of the mixture. As the first 2 stages were associated with fire and water, separation is related to the air element. In a spiritual sense, it can be understood as the separation from one's habitual thought processes or emotional trigger responses, allowing us to step back and distinguish our essence from our acquired personality. Separation is a very liberating stage where we can free ourselves of resentment toward others and ourselves. That is a kind of inner liberation from negative emotions. By doing so, we can become aware of our true feelings. We separate ourselves from our inauthentic selves and step closer to our essential or higher self. The separation occurs when we no longer identify with the character we have been playing, but rather become the awareness itself. We have conscious awareness of our own thoughts, feelings and desires, but without identifying with them or becoming attached to them. The separation stage is a kind of detachment from our old skin. After the emptiness and suffering in the first stage of calcination, and the fearful stage of dissolution, where hidden emotions emerge, the separation stage becomes as a welcome relief as we experience the stillness of being separated from our inferior and inauthentic qualities. Stage 4. Conjunction. Conjunction refers to the process of combining the elements from the previous 3 stages. In a sense, what we see what still remains within us, which is of value, and then begin to combine these elements to form one authentic spiritual self. After the first 3 stages of purification by fire, water and air, our disparate elements are brought together under the earth element. We begin a process of embodiment as spirit begins its process of materialization. We begin to feel unified in body and soul, but we are still drawing together the different strands of our true self, and we are not yet finished. Polarities cease their conflict and come together, such as male and female, body and soul, spirit and matter. Harmony is achieved between the different elements of our being. The attributes typically associated with divine feminine energy, such as intuition and emotion, unify with those attributes conventionally associated with the masculine, such as intellect and logic. Stage 5. Putrefaction, fermentation. Putrefaction or fermentation is the 5th stage and describes the decay of one's old self and the rebirth of one's true self. The first 4 stages involve discarding our old, inauthentic self and drawing together the authentic elements within us. At this stage, however, we catch a glimpse of a more refined, authentic self. This stage can be likened to the rebirth of the phoenix from its own ashes. The process can be split in 2, putrefaction and spiritualization. Putrefaction is the rotting away of our former selves as the superfluous is let go. Putrefaction can be a difficult stage and can involve strong feelings of depression or despair, since we fear losing our identity, which is associated with our old self. Spiritualization, meanwhile, gives great relief as we begin to see the world in a new and luminescent way. It involves letting go of those parts of ourselves that no longer serve us in our present life, and as a result, the step can be accompanied by blissful feelings of inner peace and contentment. Stage 6. Distillation. The distillation stage is the stage when all of the impurities are removed and there is nothing left but the essence. In chemistry, distillation involves boiling and condensation to separate components, and it's commonly used in desalination. A liquid is boiled until it evaporates, and as the steam condenses, the essence is liberated from the matter. It marks the point at which our essence becomes spiritualized. In other words, in spiritual alchemy, distillation is a metaphor for the actualization of one's spirit. In Jungian terminology, this stage also involves the assimilation of any shadow aspects into our true self. It is the distillation of one's true self and represents a step up in consciousness as our core identity is freed from any inferior elements. At this stage, the ego has ceased dominating behavior as we begin to hear the voice of our soul. It also marks the point at which the conscious and unconscious aspects of the self are brought into harmony. Stage 7, coagulation. The final stage on the spiritual journey is coagulation, which describes the process of solidification where one's essential self becomes whole. Coagulation refers to the process by which liquid, typically blood, solidifies. It occurs when we are cut to form a scab. In spiritual alchemy, coagulation involves a solidification of our true self and can be likened to healing from a wound, as if we feel ourselves to be independent and complete. Coagulation involves the complete unification of polarities, spirit and matter, body and soul, masculine and feminine, to form a single whole. In this final stage, one's higher self emerges, and it can be likened to the point where gold cools and solidifies. This piece was written by Thomas Ellison, McPhail English Literature. Wow, that was quite a trip to dive into that. So I hope you liked what you heard and recognized what is being shared, and that would be lovely. Anyway, so it's a mind stretch. It's like, oh yeah, try to get this, try to connect with it, try to see where you recognize what is true within you and where you find yourself in your process. So I thought it was just lovely to read it and to discover this. Now, what does this have to do with our liberal arts assignment, for instance, is what we're going to find out in a moment when we start to share the transmutation and the alchemy that has become something completely new. To just start somewhere, I'd love to share with you what came to me when I started to be inspired, literally, to come up with an expression of this, to use, for instance, the body and allow it to change into something formless. That was the assignment in a certain sense. Like, it could be a poem, it could be anything, but it really doesn't matter. It was about the concept of there's a body form, and now it's going to change into formlessness in some kind of way. Like, that's interesting. So what I'm going to do is share with you a video I made that I can show you. Like, it only takes 1 minute. These are it's like a stop motion or a time release photography. So I photographed for probably 5 hours and put it back into I think 30 seconds. So it was like 5 hours of photography in 30 seconds, and the funny part was that the image, I sculpted it out of ice, and I calculated that it would take only just half an hour to melt it, but it took like 4.5 hours. But at the end, the rain came to help me, so it started to rain, and it moved quickly. It melted quickly. So that was something that I didn't expect. It was really great to see that. It was like, oh my God, that changes the whole story. I really thought it would melt by the sun, and now it's literally like being flushed away by the rain. So that was really, really neat. All right, so thank you so much for this. I'm going to head over with you to the non-public part, and